Shalom, shalom, and boker tov. This is Rabbi Moshe Otero, Ways of Israel. A couple of comments I received today from the Rabbinical Association of Greater Miami, a authentic or official declaration or statement in regards to what's all going on. I have posted it up on my Ways of Israel Facebook site. Obviously, it's very well written out and very politically sensitive. So I'm going to read it to you all so you understand the Rabbinical Association of Greater Miami statement and political position on this. Each rabbi has their own views, and thus, even though we support in generality the statement, there are quite different understandings that was brought into this. The Rabbinical Association of Greater Miami is shocked and horrified by the murders of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and so many others. We stand in solidarity with our African-American brethren in calling for equal justice under the law. As Jews and as human beings, we are enjoined to not stand idly by when the blood of our brothers and sisters is shed. When deeds are our brother, we are indeed our brother's keeper. The Rabbinical Association of Greater Miami adds our voice to those of our neighbors and allies in the fight for justice, which demands that the perpetrators of these murders be brought to justice, and that we all come together in the fight to disrupt the systemic racism that has allowed these tragedies to occur. This is of the position of the Rabbinical Association. In times of social isolation that threatens to tear us apart, we must not forget the bonds that ties us all together. We give voice today to our aspirations to be truly one nation under God, and a vision that painfully seems remote during these dark times. However, as leaders of faith, we call on all together to continue to hold on to the dream, to carry on the struggles, and to unite together to fight a plague of injustice. They say racial injustice. A plague that incredibly still persists more than 50 years after the death of Dr. King. Today we are painfully reminded of his word that injustice anywhere is a threat of justice everywhere. Even one unjust death at the hands of the law enforcement is too many, and stains the reputation of the thousands of good men and women who are entrusted with the sacred obligation to serve and protect our communities. Failure to raise our voice in a time like this is complicity. We cannot and will not remain silent for the sake of our brothers and for the sake of our union. The Rabbinical Association, in no uncertain terms, condemned the rhetoric intended to incite and divide. We hold responsible those in positions of authority and urge them to use their words wisely. And we pray for our leaders at all levels to provide pathways to heal, reductions of pain, anger and fury fueled by fear, frustration and hopelessness. And we stand at the moment of reckoning as a society, and each of us must consider how we will respond. Yes. Each of us will consider how we will respond. We call upon the rabbinic colleague and our fellow Jews to consider how we might respond, to reach out to our African-American friends who are in pain, frightened, or angry, to offer support and demonstrate our enduring presence, to support community efforts and organizations that work to empower African Americans and to learn how to combat racism and join efforts to change policies that perpetuate systemic racism. Today, the Rabbinical Association grieves with the family of George Floyd. We stand in solidarity with those peacefully protesting those murders and pray for restraint and end of the violence we are witnessing. We commit ourselves to working together for the day that justice flows down like the waters and righteous like a mighty stream. Wonderful biblical text indeed. Now, I made this statement first, and I've posted it on my Facebook page. Obviously, we are in a time of the political situation as a result of all the riots going on as it's being portrayed as a peaceful demonstration. The demonstrations that we've seen today and we're seeing throughout the United States is not what Martin Luther King did in his days, nor is it in the spirit of Martin Luther King. One thing has come to be evident: this is not a racial issue. And I read the statement of the Rabbinical Association to give an introduction to my own version of what I'm seeing taking place. And I've introduced a whole bunch of other videos on my Facebook page to introduce that, in fact, this is not a racial issue at all. It is an issue of police aggression. It is an issue of aggressive force of the police unit, and I'm glad this is bringing that awareness to the public, because the public needs to be aware that many times when interacting with peace officers, sometimes the best gets into them and they abuse their authority and power and aggravate. But that's not always the case. It's a minority of the cases. And unfortunately, it happens not only to blacks, it also happens to Hispanics. I'm reminded here in Florida when they took hostage a person to basically take them hostage in a UPS van. And the man that was basically involved in that whole entire hostage taking was, in fact, here, I'll try to put you on. I don't know how to do this one. I'll try to put you on. Hopefully you're there on. Can you see me? Are we able to talk? It says adding. Let's see if we could do it. But when the UPS driver was taken hostage, one of the things that we saw was that this person was riveted with police bullets, and he was the victim of being taken hostage. And yet no one voiced concerns then. To me, the real issue is not a racial issue. I believe that the issue in America, as many other black African Americans have already stated, we in America are more united as a people that we do not see. Yes, there is racism. We're not going to deny that. But it's not endemic to the whole entire system. Perhaps in the abuse of authority, it may be endemic, but not in this nation. If anything, we've seen solidarity among all racial lines. As a matter of fact, if you see the protest, what they call peaceful protest, which is not, it's not peaceful at all, we find and encounter just the opposite. Violence. At violence. My friends, there's something taking place behind the scenes, and I'm not into conspiracy. The proof is coming out. We have big problems. Our own media are basically fueling all of this, and they're being fueled because it brings more viewers online, more viewers to watch their news. That's not the only thing that's taking place, my friends. People are being hired to protest. As a matter of fact, there is a site. I'm not going to give it out because I don't want to give more power to these individuals that I consider criminals. Criminal elements, they are being employed and they're going into these groups because they're being paid. The question is, who's paying them to be able to protest? As a matter of fact, I went to that link that a good friend of mine in Israel shared with me, that if you want to protest and make money off of it, if you want to bust some windows, crack some doors, crack some houses, put to fire some homes and buildings, they'll pay you accordingly to the seriousness of the crime. And of course, they won't pay you in US dollars, nor offer you a 1099 form, nor a W-2 form. No, by Bitcoins. They will pay you in Bitcoins, what's being transacted as the future globalist new currency. My friends, this is not, I'm not talking about conspiracy theories here. I'm talking about proof that's coming up because our own press is not a press anymore. They're basically marketing firms. Univision, Telemundo, NBC, CNN, Fox, they're not press. They are marketing arms of certain groups. And let me say it really clear. And I think the president made it very clear when he says these are to the left. These are Atifa, the people who are on the left that wants to see a disruption of this current administration that has hatred and envy and all types of issues against this administration because it has stopped the globalist right where at the door. He has stopped it, and now they want to remove him. They want, as one socialist Democrat from California says, they want to see his head blown off. We are living in violence. We are living in a society where the socialist Democrat of today are extremely putting money into the coffers and monies of these groups to protest, to create the movement that will destroy the seat of Trump. I'm sorry. Even though I read this article from the Rabbinical Association, I know my own people. And within our own people, we have socialist Democrats that are in favor to see the disruption of this society. Unfortunately, this is the case. I cannot hold back to tell the truth. And the truth be it told, we are living in a chaotic time and where interests, pharmaceutical interests, are basically grabbing in the hold of this whole COVID nonsense. There is cures, and I say nonsense because yes, it's real. Yes, they have unleashed it. Yes, these same individuals one for law and order. I believe and hold firm that whatever it takes to stop this mob, it must be done. No matter if you're black, you're white, you're Hispanic, from whatever racial group you want to be part of, America has already jumped those hurdles. And proof of that, well, it's been the last 8 years of the previous administration, who happened to be a democratic socialist commie. Yes, you heard the word right, commie. It was complete disorder. He created the inbred, the deep-seated state that we have now that is now creating this whole entire new government. I mentioned that to you before, and it's not because of the color of his skin, but it was the color of his philosophy, the ideologies that were completely against the American society. No doubt about it. The seeds of hatred has been sown way before the Trump administration. The seed of hatred was sown way before this whole entire thing. The whole plan of bringing this country down was created when we became dependent on China. And a whole bunch of things taking place as a result, as it were an avalanche of one problem after another problem after another problem. America, you have your noose on your neck. And that noose is going to pay very heavily. We have created a society, an educational society of new young generation that is completely have imbibed the wine of socialism through the teachers of the educational system. I am so glad that the educational system has been completely cut off as a result of the COVID. Why? It gives us the opportunity to re-educate our generation. If we don't re-educate them in the correct path, into the moral regulations of the past, we will have a repeat of these same problems. The respect one for another has been lost in the society. No life matters anymore. Neither black nor white nor Hispanic. Not under this mentality of socialistic oppression, which is what we're seeing emerge. Your views doesn't count. Let's eliminate it on YouTube. Let's eliminate and control it under Twitter. What you think doesn't matter. This is exactly what's going on. And if you can't see this picture, my friends, a lot of my fellow Jewish friends who oppose to this whole thing, their videos are blocked. They're censored. If this is not a group of individuals who are wealthy billionaires, we're not talking about millionaires. And that's a little bit lower in the rank. We're talking about billionaires that are trying to control the whole entire world to create a socialistic society. You know who I'm talking about. We're talking about the Bill Gates. We're talking about the Soros. I'm talking names now. We're talking about an individual whose entire life purpose is to destroy life, to kill life. Gates, who even proposed the idea that when the population is too big, we've got to kill some off. My friends, we are living in a time of danger. Wake up and reconnect yourself to God. God is the only answer. We need to bring those godly values back into life, not in just to an ideology. I wrote a little statement on one of my Facebook friends' account. The problem that we have is our educational system has gone into the hands of the socialists, teaching and indoctrinating our children to a viewpoint that they've never lived. They don't know what socialism is, what communism is, what totalitarian systems are. I would prefer a kingdom, a true king to rule over anything like the socialist states that they are imposing and they are trying to promote and trying to engraft into this country. You will see very soon actions of individuals that in order to free the current state, they may take actions that will shock you, because what we're living is in a state of anarchy. And I pray for my President Trump. I pray for leaders who has the chutzpah to be able to declare the truth in the midst of a bunch of people who lie, who deceive the public, who manipulate the public. And I'm speaking to the people in the television media, the CNN, the NBCs. Not only do they create fake news, they produce news, but they manipulate the news, they manipulate the narratives. My friends, watch it. It's taking place right in front of you as you're reading and seeing these different video clips. They're manipulating you. Since when, after the great violence that took place, they still call it the peace demonstrators, the peace movement. This is not peace. They have already implants in every single group and every single movement and every single march to be able to cause chaos. They've already captured many of them, but there's so many infiltrated because they're being paid money. Why? Because the unemployment. And who created this unemployment problem? The COVID issue. Who were involved in this? Look at the puppet figures, my friends. Don't be blind. Don't be blind. This is taking place. This is a plague that has come upon America. Not only America, upon the whole world, because their objective is world domination, world control. These are, if you want to call it, I don't believe in this conspiracy of the Illuminatis, but they are a group of people that are behind the scenes creating and promoting this chaos and paying people big money to do so, to destroy businesses. And I would say to my fellow business fellows, take your arms. Any of these people come to your store, knock them dead. You have a right to life and property, to protect life and property. This is issues of pekuah nefesh, to save your life. Do what is necessary to save your life, even if you have to protect it with your guns. Do so. When the officers and police officers are completely disabled and being able to act, then we have chaos. Then we have anarchy, which is exactly what these individuals who are paying these protesters to do are doing. Create chaos so we can create a system to undermine the current one. I'll tell you who some people they need to arrest. This is my opinion, and my opinion alone, not that of the Rabbinical Association. So let me make it clear. My opinion, they need to arrest for this type of disturbance, Soros, who has been nothing but a blight upon the Jewish nation. Soros, Gates, Obama, Clinton. There's a whole list of them that are involved in this whole entire thing because of their envy and their hurt and their hatred against Trump and the success that he's been having. They need to be arrested as enemies of the human race. Yes, enemies of the human race. They need to be arrested. And what's the problem? We don't have the police officials. We don't have people of moral strength to be able to say they're wrong. They need to be held accountable to the United States of America. They need to be prosecuted. They need to be prosecuted to the nth degree in the same way those 4 police officers need to be prosecuted. I'm upset. I'm upset because people are being manipulated with partial truth. They're not being told everything. They're being held back from seeing what's really going on. And that upsets me very much, especially a person who has dedicated his life to search for truth and to share truth with many of the people that watch me. It's enough. It's enough. America needs to arise. Good Americans need to arise and stop the protesters. Stop them where they're at. And if they're getting paid, we need to know that they're getting paid for it and stop them and prosecute them. There are laws in the land that is considered organized crime. This, my friends, is I consider it organized crime, being completely manipulating people because they need a job, they need to work, and they're getting paid very hefty money to go out there and protest and to cause all this havoc. You don't believe it? Do the research. Open your eyes. Don't be blind. I was present when in California we had the LA riots over the Rodney King situation. And I can tell you right now, it was detained locally. Minneapolis mayor, shame on you. Minneapolis governor, I know you're a socialist. I looked you up. I checked you out. You are a socialist. You let this run until then they needed to create this type of havoc. I don't trust any socialist Democrat that's currently in power. And watch the states. Notice the states that are having the biggest problems with this peace march issue. These are states that imbibe the socialist agenda. And they're doing this on purpose, no doubt about it. It didn't take that long over here in Florida for it to be controlled. Yes, there were the disturbers, the troublemakers, the violent delinquents in the groups. But you know what? They had a different task. They did it differently. And they were able and are able to retain peace. They didn't tolerate police going aggressively crazy on the crowd. Thank God for them. That's leadership. That's leadership, my friends. We are living in a time of chaos where we need to rein back the order and law and order back into this country. If not, we're going to lose this country. I put up some videos about what Reagan said many years ago. It is these intellectual elite that want to control your life, that wants to control the whole entire United States of America. And not only that, want to control the whole world. This is not conspiracy. This is reality. Wake up and smell the coffee and get Torah in your life. Get scriptures back in your life. And to my fellow Christian friends, that I have many, many Christian friends and fellow Christian colleagues of the clergy, get the socialistic mindset out of your minds and hearts. You're destroying your own community by allowing it to seep in. And I'm talking about many of my friends in the assemblies of God. It's time to stop, to put a halt to this. We've got to call it what it is. This is not, my friends, this is not racially motivated. This death, if you look at the 4 officers that were there, the 4 officers were of different ethnic background. One was Asian, one was of a different racial ethnic, and the one that had his knee on there happened to be white. But it wasn't because he was white. My friends, if you read the story correctly, he was a fellow worker at a local club. He knew this man. Racially motivated? No, my friends. It was perhaps excessive police aggression. And that led to his death. And definitely it needs to be brought to justice. But let no one deceive you that this is racist. Let no one have you think this is racially divided. It's systematic racism. No, it's not. America has overcome that, I believe, completely. What needs to be overcome is this excessive police force. Policies need to be placed into motion. Not allow the power of police state to take over. Once that happens, we've lost our democracy. And then it will be time to take up arms and protect our life and our property, which every American watching me know exactly what I'm talking about. And that is to protect your life, which even in Jewish value, we call it pekuah hanefesh. Your life matters. That's why I posted up in many of my Facebook pages, all lives matter. Not just the black ones, not just the Hispanic ones, not just the Jewish ones. All lives matter. Your life, George Floyd, I lament that you had to lose it as a result of a decision of a police officer to use excessive force. But it wasn't racism. And for putting you down the way he did, for just $20 that happened to be counterfeit, my friends, that speaks a lot of what our society is so involved in. It's all about materialism. And unfortunately, it is that same materialism that will destroy us as we see that people are being hired with Bitcoins, the new currency, Bitcoin, to be able to do all this mass disorder and chaos. We need to pray. We need to pray for this country. We need to pray for the human life in this country. We see one plague after another from divine providence coming down, and America has not learned. We need to hold these truths complete and fully, that God is our creator. And it's God's rule that we need to put upon our yoke. If there is no God among us, if there is not that essence of God and God's law, then we are truly in a society of anarchy and complete ungodly, evil people. And then this society is no different than the societies of Sodom and Gomorrah that was destroyed by God, by God's hand. So I'm saying to you watching me, whoa, God help us. Because if you don't get back to order and law and order and seek after God, whether it is the Jewish God, the God of Israel, or the Christian God, the Christian religion, even this we need to bring back. I'm going to just share this one time. I heard one time from a Hasidic rabbi, and it's true. There was a rabbi at one time that was riding on his horse and carriage. And the one that was basically taking him to different places was a very religious idolater. He believed very much in his idols and his images. And as a result of that, one day, as he was passing by the place that he always would do his sign of the cross, one day he stopped doing that. That day that he stopped doing that, the Rebbe that was in that carriage got off and said, "Stop the carriage." And he walked away. Further down, the man basically who stopped doing that returned. And his secretary asked him, "Rebbe, why did you stop and got off?" I go, "Have you not noticed that our driver, every time on a religious basis, he used to make the sign towards his idol, and this time he didn't do it. And immediately it signaled me that he no longer believed in his God, though it was not a true God. But it's the idea of having the fear of that God upon him, which he lost. And when human society lose the fear of God, the fear of law, they are not redemptive. There's no way of saving them unless they return back to the idea of one God. My friends, the same holds true in our society today. The only way this nation will be redeemed before God is when this nation returns back to its God. Whether it be the Christian God or whether it be the God of Israel, but it needs to return back to that basis that there is one God, one creator, one rule maker. And if we don't teach this, universally, like one rabbi was saying earlier in the post, Rabbi Perry from California, unless we teach again our children of what morality is and what the ethical, moral value and system we should all have, this society will perish. And God help us all. There will be no ability to even write a nice little letter that's politically correct in order to let everybody know we're with you in your hurt and pain. But what use of our compassion and our empathy of those who are hurting and in pain if we don't change the moral compass that's driving this nation down to hell? That, my friends, we need to change. And that can only be done by people who care about their communities, by people who care about their fellow human beings. And when I put this television on YouTube and on video on Facebook, it's because I care. I care to see this nation come back to that level of morality, that level of human respect that we lost, even by us, the leaders, the rabbis. Keep in mind, I've said on this Facebook page many a time that the reason why the plague of COVID came down was because we were not able to respect one another as leaders, as rabbis, but rather speaking Lashon Hara, Motzi Shemra, speaking in the shuls, speaking this and that. And now it comes to this complete disaster. We leaders have a responsibility before all human beings, before God. We must give an account for what we say and what we do before God, before anything else. And if that's not the fear of God that you have upon you, get out of the leadership. Get out of being a rabbi or a preacher. Get out of that, because then you're doing it for another motive, for the money. For the money to live well. And you know what? God doesn't need hirelings. God has his own people. God chooses and calls people and equips people to do what he needs to have done. And you know what? You need to step down. Just like there is police who abuse their authorities, there is also leaders who abuse their authorities. There's even preachers and rabbis who abuse their authorities. And instead of doing God's work, they're actually doing the work of the other side. It's time to come and confront these problems in our communities, within our lives. This is Rabbi Moshe Otero with the Ways of Israel. I pray that this nation be healed. I pray that our Jewish community be healed. I pray that Mashiach, Emet Mashiach, come already. Shalom, shalom.